Get your fantasy football questions in for Jeff Pasquino from thefootballguys.com. He's brought to you by Piccalilli Inn, Route 206 in Chemung, home of South Jersey's best wings. Jeff Pasquino answers your fantasy football questions. Week 11 starts tonight with a good one. We got Cardinals and Seahawks on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get Jeff's take on who to play in tonight's game. Which Cardinals and Seahawks, Jeff, should be active tonight? Got a good game. Got horrible Seattle defense. I would imagine Arizona guys would be in high demand to get in your lineup tonight.
Yeah, just to put some flavor in this game, the game is projected to be a 30-27 win for Seattle, so lots of points. Based on our projections on Football Guys, Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson are our top two quarterbacks for the week. So get your passing game out there for Arizona and Seattle. That means DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, all wide receiver ones. Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald are flex options. At running back, Carlos Hyde is probably the big story. He's going to be a running back, too. He's starting for the injured Chris Carson. Chase Edmonds and Kenyon Drake are going to split time for Arizona, but they're both solid running back, twos. Even the kickers are viable this week for this team.
All right, that's tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Get your Cardinals and Seahawks active. It's going to be a barn burner, back and forth, a lot of points. You don't want those guys sitting on the bench. Let's go and take a look at the Sunday card with Jeff Pasquino from thefootballguys.com. All right, get your questions in for Jeff. We'll answer those in just a minute. But first, let's go to the quarterbacks here and start with Cam Newton. Cam Newton against Houston. The Patriots pulled off a surprise, and Newton, he looked a little better in that game.
He did, and he ran one in again. So I think that he's a capable running back or a quarterback as a running back there because of his running abilities. He's a borderline quarterback one against a suspect Houston defense this week.
All right, Teddy Bridgewater, he had the knee problem. He's going to take on Detroit. Are you worried about that knee with Bridgewater?
I am, because he didn't practice today, and now they're saying he may not play. So it's either going to be P.J. Walker or Will Grier. That downgrades the entire Carolina offense from Mike Davis at running back.
All right. What about when you go to Tua? You've now seen him for a couple of games. He's on the road at Denver. Is he a viable quarterback?
He's more of a quarterback, too, again this week. Denver is a sneaky, solid defense against the run, which is more of his strength. Miami's passing game is still kind of iffy, and they're still filling themselves out. But this game is going to be, there might be some weather, as always, in Denver this time of year. He's more of a quarterback, too, this week.
All right. What about the Jameis Winston taking over there for Drew Brees? Is he a guy that you pick right up and stick right in the lineup, or do you want to see a little bit from him?
This is something we talked about amongst the staff on a roundtable article this week, and I'm in the camp that I think he's a QB2 with QB1 upside just because of the matchups. You've got Atlanta this week and 2 weeks from now, and Denver in between. So he could get 2 or 3 starts against Atlanta in some games. Yes, he might throw a couple interceptions. There's always that chance of Winston, but I think you're looking at high-scoring contests when he's starting.
All right. What about Hopkins? Not Hopkins. Watson. Without Hopkins, it doesn't seem like Watson is the same quarterback, but he's got a good matchup this week.
He does, and he's got sneaky good wide receivers. Will Fuller has scored a touchdown in 5 or 6 weeks in a row before last week. They move the ball around. Again, with a bad defense, you need to put up points. And with David Johnson out, now Duke Johnson in that backfield, Watson has to carry that team. So I like Watson as a QB1 this week.
All right. Last quarterback we'll look at before we move over. And let's go with Kirk Cousins because they're playing Dallas. And if you had a matchup with Dallas, you wanted to get that guy in. But Dallas defense has played a little better.
Yeah, I think what Minnesota's going to do is they're going to run the ball down Dallas's throat. They did not do that well against the Bears, who in a very tough matchup on Monday. Dalvin Cook wants to have a get-right game, as does Alexander Madison. Both those guys are viable options this week. Kirk Cousins, he's more of a QB2, but I think he's going to be handing off a lot this week.
All right, if you have a question for Jeff, send us a text message, 609-403-0973. Jeff Pasquino from thefootballguys.com. Let's look at some running backs now and get your take on this. Obviously, Mike Davis is back in the driver's seat in Carolina, so is he back in your lineup?
He is, and against Detroit, it's a good matchup. He's a running back one. He's a top 10 running back this week.
All right, you look at Kareem Hunt and the Browns running back situation up against the Eagles, whose defense has been a little suspect against the run.
Yeah, I think Kareem Hunt is a buy low candidate. Everybody's going to be after Nick Chubb, but both those guys had 100 yards last week, and Cleveland loves to run the ball. They have a great schedule the rest of the year, including December, I would definitely go get Kareem Hunt if you can and start him every week.
Yeah, Chubb, of course, is the higher profile back of the two. They play the Eagles on Sunday. Let's go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He had that big opening week, but what has he really done afterwards? Is he a guy that you're playing against Vegas?
That's an interesting matchup. Vegas beat them the first time. There's going to be some revenge there because the Kansas City did not like how the Raiders circled the stadium after the game, sort of a victory lap in their buses. So that's going to be a heated rivalry. Edwards-Helaire is a good but not great running back. There's a lot of weapons for Kansas City, so they spread the ball around. Also, remember, Le'Veon Bell is there now, too. So Edwards-Helaire is not a goal line back, but he's a productive back, so he's more of a running back too.
All right, what's going on with the running back situation in Miami?
Salvon Ahmed, and we're going to talk about picking up running backs in our Sleepers feature, but Salvon Ahmed out of the University of Washington, they had a huge mess in Miami. They have Gaskins on the IR. They cut Jordan Howard this week. Breda, who's coming back, is the running back too, but they think they might have found a diamond in the rough in Salvon Ahmed. He's a starter. He's probably going to split time when Gaskins comes back, but both those guys are running back twos when healthy.
All right, now, Zeke Elliott. I mean, they got Minnesota. Here's another team, Minnesota, that had been kind of creaky defensively, but they've played better. So is Zeke Elliott a guy you're trusting this week?
I think you have to ride him because he's such a good feature back, and they're going to give him 20 touches. Just on volume alone, he's going to be no worse than a running back two. Not a great matchup, but the rest of the way, Dallas really has to give him the ball at least 20 times a week.
All right. What about the running back situation with the Patriots? Because if last week was any indication, man, power eye, let's run that ball. Rex Burkhead. They got some other guys out there, but what's the running back du jour for this week?
As always with Bill Belichick, it's a matchup-based dependency. They want to use Damian Harris when he's healthy, but he got banged up last week, so they turned to Rex Burkhead, who's more of the pass catcher, as is James White. They have all plays for all three of these guys, which makes them flex plays at best. Burkhead might be a goal line back, but if Harris is fully healthy, he's the guy to try out there.
All right, one more running back with Jeff Pasquino from the Football Guys before we look at some wide receivers here. And then, of course, we'll get to your questions. Text them in, 609-403-0973. What about the Jets running back situation? Do you get excited about Le'Veon Bell returning?
Not really. I think for the Jets, you're really looking at Michael Pirine is probably your starter with Frank Gore. So those are your guys. You got Bell now in Kansas City after the trade, or actually the cut and sign. So Michael Pirine is probably a flex option to pick up in PPR leagues.
All right. Of course, we're getting down Week 11, fantasy football, the Sunday card here. These are the wide receivers to take a look at. And, of course, your questions, get them in, 609-403-0973. And let's go. DJ Moore got one last week again. He's got Detroit on the schedule. But you mentioned Bridgewater possibly out. What's that do for Moore?
Yeah, I think that knocks everybody's value in Carolina a little bit down. The one receiver I think is most consistent is Robbie Anderson. Curtis Samuel after that, but he's more of a wide receiver 3 this week.
All right. What about what's going on with Amari Cooper and that situation? You're going to get Andy Dalton back, CeeDee Lamb. What about the Cowboys receivers?
The wrinkle here is that the offensive line is the problem, and that's why Andy Dalton was out. So they can't throw the ball deep. So you're looking more of a CeeDee Lamb and some of your hot hitter guys and your tight ends, Schultz. So they can't go deep. You're going to see a lot of dump-off passes to Gallup and Lamb.
Jacoby Myers was featured last week. Trust him enough to play him again?
It's really up and down. I think he's the one wide receiver to go with for the Patriots, but I don't think I have him more than a flex play this week.
Okay, Travis Fulgham, he had some monster weeks. Last week, he was kind of out of the mix. He only had the one catch going up against Cleveland. Do you like Fulgham this week?
Cleveland's a sneaky defense. I have Fulgham more in the flex category. I think they're going to try to get him and Rieger out there, but now that they've got Goddard back at tight end, I think they're going to mix him in more and try to get him more of the offense. But Fulgham and Rieger are your guys, but they're no better than flex plays this week.
All right. What about the Saints receivers with Breeze out? Does this change their value?
Yeah, I think you're looking for more of a deep strike offense. I think you still have Michael Thomas, who's going to get plenty of possessions, but I think you've got guys that can go stretch the field. Emmanuel Sanders. I also like Winston really likes tight ends, so I really like Jared Cook.
One more, and then we'll get to your questions. 609-403-0973. 0973. Get your questions in for Jeff, and he will answer those questions in just a second. Let's go to Henry Ruggs. I mean, all these rookie receivers have had some big years, but Ruggs was the highest profile guy. He's got Kansas City this week.
He got banged up a little bit in the middle of the year, but now he's back, and I think he's, Aguilar, we know he has stone hands issues, but he's had a decent season this year. But I think that Ruggs is probably the top target out there. Hunter Renfro's in the mix. Obviously, the tight end, Darren Waller, is the top guy, but I think Ruggs is coming on. I think he's going to be seen a lot. He's missed a couple touchdowns due to penalties or just being out of bounds. He's a solid wide receiver 3 option this week.
All right, it's time for your questions. Jeff Pasquino from thefootballguys.com. Hunter has been compiling your questions. 609-403-0973. Get them in. Fantasy expert Jeff Pasquino from thefootballguys.com helping you out for Week 11. Let's go.
Speaking of Ruggs, how about Ruggs or Higgins to start us off?
Yeah, I like T. Higgins this week for Cincinnati. Washington is one of the better pass rushes, but Higgins just has a knack in the red zone. I like him a lot this week.
Sanders, Robinson, or Josh Jacobs?
Oh, good problems to have. I like Jacobs and I like Sanders. I think Robinson has the toughest matchup with the Steelers.
Okay, so if you pick 2, it's Robinson and Sanders?
I would pick Sanders and Jacobs.
Jacobs and Sanders.
Yeah, okay. Robinson, odd man out.
Okay, Joe Burrow or Teddy Bridgewater?
Joe Burrow. Bridgewater's probably a scratch this week.
Herbert or Watson?
We have him number 5 and number 6 this week, but I think I have to take Herbert against the Jets.
Okay, at the tight end position, Thomas from Washington or Schultz from Dallas?
Schultz from Dallas. I think they have to dump the ball quickly. He's going to get plenty of targets.
Curtis Samuel over Chris Godwin?
I like Godwin more. Tampa Bay against the Rams, that's going to be a kind of sneaky shootout, and I think he doesn't always get the touchdowns, but he's going to get plenty of volume.
Tom Brady or Jameis Winston?
I think I go with Tom Brady. Again, I have the Rams, Tampa Bay as a shootout kind of game, right as Tampa Bay is trying to stay in the number 1 spot.
Okay, and this texter needs 3 wide receivers of this 5. Keenan Allen, Robert Woods, Deontay Johnson, CeeDee Lamb, and T. Higgins.
Robert Woods. What was the first name? I'm sorry.
Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen, Robert Woods, and I would go with Higgins.
Okay, there you go. All right, so there you go. Week 11. Get your questions, of course, each and every week for Jeff Pasquino from thefootballguys.com, and we will do it again next week for week number 12. But before we go, he's got some sleepers, some waiver wires, some under-the-radar plays for week 11. Who we got?
Yeah, so first the waiver wire, guys. Devontae Adams did not practice this week, so keep an eye on the Green Bay situation, and Alan Lazard is back, so we might want to pick him up, or even tight end Robert Tonyan. At running back, J.D. McKissick is always a sleeper. He gets overlooked a lot in PPR leagues. He sees a ton of catches and targets. Giovanni Bernard is probably going to start again for the Bengals. And also, at running back, Kalen Ballage is getting a lot of work for the Chargers against the Jets. Now, one last piece of advice. It's week 11 now. All the buys except for Tampa Bay and Carolina are done. That happens in 2 weeks. So now is the time to look at your roster, clear out the dead wood, and grab as many running backs as you can and stash them, because this is exactly the same situation as Salvin Ahmed last week. You never know when these guys are going to pop up and become a starter, and running backs are gold. So pick up the guys who are the number 2 spots, like Tony Pollard, Devontae Booker for the Raiders, Alexander Madison for Minnesota, Boston Scott for the Eagles, even Devine Ozigbo for Jacksonville. He's the only other running back on that roster. If James Robinson goes down, he becomes instant fantasy gold.
All right, good advice by Jeff Pasquino from thefootballguys.com, and thanks to everybody again who contributed their questions. If we didn't get to yours, try again faster next week. Jeff's back. Jeff Pasquino, footballguys.com. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the games.
Absolutely. Don't forget, get your lineup set for tonight. Good one tonight. You can hear the game on 97.3 ESPN, Cardinals and Seahawks. And the Fantasy Fix with Jeff Pasquino is brought to you by the Piccalilli Inn. Be sure to call the Piccalilli for your game day favorites like award-winning wings, ears, and tails. Check them out online at piccalilliinn.com.